Don't forget, heads, you can tune in to the Beard Speaks audio podcast every Monday, Friday, and every weekend on a variety of platforms, including Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, Breaker, Pocketcasts, Radio Public, Stitcher, and more. Hashtag Beard Speaks is the name, and if you can't find it on your favorite platform, you can always find it on anchor.fm/beasthostbeard. Like, favorite, subscribe, and leave a positive review for your motherfucking boy. Bobby's Buds. With legalization sweeping the nation, it's important to know where and who your cannabis products are coming from. With Bobby's Buds, he's putting his damn name right on it. Originator of the Fago-flavored cannabis concentrate cartridge, highly sought after, truly trusted, powerfully potent cannabis products. Bobby's Buds. He's the plug's plug. Hit him up on Instagram at BobbyTheBarber1. Catch Bobby's Buds and 656 Records this September as they host the most exciting cannabis and hip-hop lifestyle festival in the Northeast, 656 Fest. Visit 656fest.com for more information. What up, heads? You know what it is. You know what it does. My name is Chuck motherfucking Reeves. I am that dude that you have come to know, love, and hate as the Beast Host, and you are tuned in once again to the incredible, edible, delectable, delicious entertainment product show type thing that I call the Beard Speaks. Welcome, 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 salute, and flame emojis to all, whether they audio listeners, whether they YouTube video watchers, whether you are Patreons, whether you are haters, whether you are super fans. I welcome each and every one here to the headquarters for this another super exciting episode 216 actually. The quality and diversity of the guests that I've been getting not only here in the headquarters but as well as remotely via the fucking Skype machine continues to grow. And today's guest is no exception. I was super pleased to be joined via that Skype machine by the one and only Mr. Jeffrey Sass. Mr. Sass is not only the CMO of .club domains, but he is also an author. The author of this book. You may have seen me posting about it. Everything I know about business and marketing, I learned from the toxic Avenger before he moved on to the business world as a COO, CEO, and CMO of several high-tech and entertainment companies. Jeffrey Sass was a 7-year employee of legendary independent horror house TROMA. This diversity in his background makes him an expert in damn near all things filmmaking, as well as business and marketing, and our conversation over the next hour ran the gambit. We talked about marketing. We talked about .club domains and how a properly worded domain name can help you in your overall marketing scheme, regardless of your business. And of course, we talked about one of his babies, the toxic Avenger. So go ahead, strap on in. Grab your motherfucking tutus. Everything I learned from the Toxic Avenger with Jeffrey Sass. Episode 216. The Beard Speaks. Now.
Oh, come on, he's a miserable cocksucker fucking asshole. You hate him, admit it.
I call it basically, as far as me, with my come up in the business, I've had different lifetimes. I had a military lifetime. I had a rap music lifetime. Right. I now have this broadcaster lifetime. And each lifetime has been able to influence the next in positive ways and sometimes negative ways. It seems like you have the same sort of journey going on here, where you started as one thing and ended up as far different as you can get within the business world, but still allowing each segment of you to influence the next and your success as you went along. What got you started in the film business to begin with? I know you were in overseas content acquisition, I guess is what Netflix would call it these days.
Well, I mean, you know, I always, even as a young child, I was always a performer. So I liked to perform, and I was in a children's theater group when I was 10, and I was always the guy in the school plays and stuff. So I always liked that. And so, of course, I went to college to study pre-med. And after, very quickly in my college career, I realized that pre-med wasn't, really what I wanted to do. And I shifted my focus to English, creative writing, and theater. So I've always been involved in that world as something I love to do, including writing. I've always, been a writer at heart. So when I graduated college, I went to work in the entertainment industry in New York. So my first job out of college was working in New York for a company called Satori Entertainment. And we were, back then, the leading importer of English language foreign films. So we would find films from Australia, New Zealand, and Great Britain and bring them into the United States. So we worked with, all these people who later on became very famous as the Australian film industry took off. So we brought Mel Gibson's first film, Tim, into the U.S. We worked with directors like Roger Donaldson and Bruce Beresford and all these guys before anyone knew who they were. So that was a lot of fun, and we weren't really a production company, although we did do a show on cable television, the early days of cable television, called Celebrity, which was basically a interview show where Alison Steele, who was a well-known female disc jockey back then on FM radio, she was the hostess, and we would interview stars of movies when they were in town promoting their movies. That was half the show, and then the other half of the show is we'd interview bigwigs in corporate world, and they would pay for it. So the CEO of Exxon, the first half of the show would be interviewing Robin Williams from The World According to Garp, and the second half of the show would be interviewing the CEO of Exxon. And Exxon paid for the whole
promotional
Yeah.
consideration provided by.
Exactly. So that was a great experience too, because I got to meet a lot of celebrities and learned very quickly that they're pretty much people, and just like people, there are asshole celebrities and there are really nice celebrities, and they run the gamut. So that was a good lesson to learn early in my career. And then I went to work for TROMA. And I was at TROMA for 7.5 years. I was not there for the original Toxic Avenger. That was done in like 84, and I joined them in 87. But I worked very intimately on Toxic Avenger 2 and 3 and TROMA's War, and I co-wrote Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD with Lloyd. So I had my hand in a lot of stuff over those years. But to your point, Chuck, when I joined TROMA, they don't pay anyone to work on their movies. Pretty much, it's pretty much volunteer.
To this day, I still get the casting notices. To this day,
exactly. So I became friendly with Lloyd and Michael because I met them previously when I was at Satori, and they hired me to write a screenplay for them. Paid me very little, and I did that. And then I got to the point where I was looking for a real job, or something more. More regular, but they said, well, we don't hire, we don't have any real jobs making movies, but, we can hire you in a sales position. And that's how I ended up doing the international sales and home video sales and TV sales and all that other stuff. I figured I'd get my foot in the door, and when the time came and we went into production, I'd find my way to weasel into the production side of the business, which is pretty much what I did. So it was pretty crazy. But to your earlier point, and then I'll shut up and let you ask questions. I started out in that industry. Today, I'm the CMO of .club domains. We're the registry operator for the new domain extension .club. So instead of .com or .biz or .org, you can get a domain that ends in .club. Couldn't be further away. I've worked in the video game industry. I've worked in the mobile technology and mobile commerce industries. But throughout all of that, I've managed to retain a lot of the lessons I've learned from TROMA and from the entertainment world, making these crazy movies, and apply them to things I was doing in all these other disparate industries. So I've never had sort of a master plan and just kind of go with the flow. And it's taken me through a great journey where I've traveled the world and done a lot of cool things. But a lot of it I give credit to Toxie and the Toxic Avenger as kind of being my mentor along the way.
And you certainly did with the title of the book, Everything I Learned About Marketing and Business. I'm sorry, Everything I Know About Business and Marketing, I Learned from the Toxic Avenger, available in hard copy on Amazon.
Absolutely.
Like I said, this book
and Kindle
grasped
version
me because it seems like in any business, whether you're in the independent film world, horror, pornography, tech businesses, medical, the keys to success are often found to be exactly the same. And that's what this book seems to cover in a very humorous and retrospective way of your years, 7 of which at Troma, where amongst the things you already mentioned, you had a big hand in securing quite the large marketing deal for a children's Saturday morning cartoon based on a nearly X-rated exploitative gore film, a series I had several of the figures of.
Awesome.
It's mind-blowing to me, the links you guys were able to go from the independent standpoint, and a lot of my audience is of that independent nature. I myself, I feel building this Beard Speaks product and my audio podcast and the video stuff is kind of building that same sort of thing. You kind of met Lloyd in almost by chance. Is that correct?
Well, I reached out to them when I was at Satori, the company I mentioned. We were getting involved in TV syndication, and we were looking to grow our library. You know, in that business, the more content you have, the more stuff you can sell. So I was looking for other films that we could represent to the TV syndication market. And I had heard about the Troma guys. I probably had seen a couple of their films, and they were only a few blocks away from our office. So I knew they had a big library of films. Granted, they were not necessarily TV ready, but they had a large library of films.
But
so
at the
I reached
time,
out.
the home video was gaining speed, and it was nearing its peak, and you guys were almost part of the front wave of that.
Yeah, it was really just getting started. I mean, at Satori, before I met the Troma guys, we were one of the first independent companies to license movies just for home video rights. So we licensed an Australian film, Dot and the Kangaroo, to what eventually became Fox Home Video. It was originally Magnetic Video, and then it became Fox Home Video. And that was one of the first, independent deals just for home video. So yeah, it was all getting started back then. It was really interesting. So I reached out to Lloyd and Michael, said, work down the block from you. We do this. Can I come by and maybe I can do something? So I came by and met them. We got along great. They had absolutely no interest in doing business with Satori. And Troma is fiercely, and to this day remains fiercely independent. So if anyone was going to distribute their content or their library to TV, they would do it themselves. Everything we always did, we tried to do ourselves rather than use third parties whenever possible. And that persists to this day. So that's how we met. And but we hit it off, and we had a good time. And even the very first time I visited the Troma building, Lloyd was giving me a tour. And the Troma building is in Hell's Kitchen, which is the west side of Manhattan in New York City, around 9th Avenue and 50th Street. At the time, not a great neighborhood at all. Today, a very hot neighborhood.
Gentrification at work.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a Whole Foods
today
around the corner, and there's a Starbucks, and
everything you could imagine.
Vegan
and
sushi.
million-dollar condos, the whole thing. But back then, it was a very colorful neighborhood, to say the least. It was pretty interesting.
Call it ground level these days. They got in on the ground level.
Yeah, absolutely. But the Troma building was like a 4-story walk-up in this weird neighborhood. And at the top floor, they had the editing suites. They had these, flatbed film editing consoles. And Lloyd was giving me the tour, and when we went upstairs to the editing room, they were working on a new trailer for The Toxic Avenger. And Lloyd showed me the trailer and said, "Oh, what do you think?" And to be honest, at that point, I'm not sure if I had actually seen The Toxic Avenger, but I heard about it, and I knew that one of the attractions to it was, yes, it was very gory, very sophomoric, but it also had some humor to it. It had a little bit of a humor. And the trailer he showed me was very dry, pretty straightforward. The tagline was "A different kind of hero." And he said, "What do you think, Jeff?" And I said, "Well, to be honest, I don't think that the trailer and the tagline in particular gives justice to what I understand the Toxic Avenger to be." He says, "Well, what would you say?" And kind of off the cuff, I said, "Well, it's funny, right? The Toxic Avenger is kind of humorous, and he's from New Jersey, right?" He says, "Yeah." So I said, "So why don't you call it the first superhero from New Jersey?" And Lloyd goes, "Oh, I like that. I like that. Can I use it? Can I use it?" And I said, "Sure." And sure enough, he changed the tagline to the movie. They redid the posters. He redid the trailer. And to this day, the tagline for The Toxic Avenger is the first superhero from New Jersey. And there's a chapter about that in the book, and I draw lessons from that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that tagline, in essence, is probably the reason that I saw the film. I was a young child from New Jersey, and my mother was staunchly from New Jersey, and they were horror movie fans. And when there was a horror movie hero from New Jersey, it became like part of my childhood. And it shows the importance of being flexible, as you said in the book, with your ideas and not always looking for an immediate reward, so to speak. What other lessons? I mean, I'm sure serving under Lloyd and those guys for as long as you did was a lifetime of lessons about filmmaking, about budget and coming as close to under budget as you can get, and a million other things you couldn't pay for as far as education. But what lessons did you learn at TROMA that you really applied to these other industries that you did, including the .club domains that you
So even that lesson, Chuck, that we just talked about, you know, you hit half of it. There's kind of two lessons in that experience. One is, from my end, I've always had the belief that, you know, you can't keep your ideas too precious. If you treat your ideas as they're too precious and you keep them to yourself, chances are very few of them are ever going to get executed, right? Because you can't do everything yourself. And sometimes the best way to get in with someone, to get a gig if you're a freelancer, is to actually share some of your knowledge, and don't worry about, okay, they're going to steal my idea and use it. Oh, he's going to take that tagline and use it for the trailer and I didn't get anything for it. I get the satisfaction of knowing it was actually used and it led to a relationship that eventually led to a 7-year career and a long-time friendship and a lot more. So you can't keep your ideas too precious or they won't get done. You know, obviously you have to balance that between things that are truly proprietary, but at the end of the day, we're all full of great ideas. It's the execution of those ideas and the implementation of them that actually matter. And if you're not going to do it yourself, I wasn't making the Toxic Avenger, so keeping that tagline to myself wasn't going to do me any good. Let's give them the idea. Let them use it. Make the world a better place by sharing, you know, your ideas. So that was one half of the lesson from that experience. The other half was how Lloyd handled it. You know, one of the great things about Lloyd and TROMA in general is, you know, nobody was too lowly to have a great idea. I mean, literally, it was a great work lesson to learn that a good idea can come from anyone. It doesn't always have to come from the boss. It doesn't always have to come from the most educated person in the room. You know, someone could walk in delivering pizza at lunchtime and see something and say something and have an amazing idea that's going to make your project better. And at TROMA, Lloyd was always open to that. You know, he would turn to, you know, the PA, the unpaid intern, and ask them their opinion on something. And if they actually had a great idea, say, okay, yeah, let's do that. You know, so it was a very open environment to accept ideas from any source. You know, the source didn't matter if the idea was really good. And that kind of collaboration obviously worked very well in an independent film, but it also works very well in any business.
It seems like you were neck deep in true creatives at the time. And I know sometimes creation, creativeness, and business can bump heads. It looks like you found a way to kind of balance the two. You said that filming a movie is like a startup on steroids. Can you expound upon that a little bit? Because I know what you mean. I understand the process, but it's much more short term.
Absolutely. And that's, you hit the nail on the head, Chuck. I mean, when you think about it, every film, whether it's an independent film or a studio film, every film is its own startup, right? Every film is its own enterprise, right? Oftentimes they have their own corporate entity, but when you're starting a film, you have to first have a business plan, right? That's the script essentially. You know, you have to raise money from investors typically, just like you would for your startup or your business. You have to build a team, so you're hiring people. You have to fire people when they don't work out. You have to go through all the HR issues that any business would have to go through, large or small. And one good lesson for entrepreneurs is there are HR issues. As long as there's more than one person, there are going to be HR issues. You don't have to be a company of hundreds to have HR issues. You could be 2 or 3 partners working together, and there's going to be personnel issues and people issues and stuff. You know, it's very
some of the stories tough. You tell in this book, it looks like certain things in the early days with TROMA, if they were looked at in a retrospective scope these days, would be what we call an HR nightmare. But I'm sorry, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, well, I don't know that HR existed in the form it does today.
PC obviously didn't.
Yes. We were not, and TROMA remains less than politically correct, which I think is a good thing. But
absolutely,
yeah. So it was pretty crazy. So. You know, it was that type of an environment where everyone can contribute. And that was the trade-off, right? You weren't getting paid much. You were getting yelled and screamed at all the time. Working conditions were pretty horrid. But at the same time, if you could put up with that, it was an unbelievable learning experience. You know, someone who came in there never having touched a camera before could come away, you know, directing second unit, you know, and being on their way to learning how to become a cinematographer. So, you know, it was that environment. And some people rose to the occasion and became superstars, like James Gunn, for example, who TROMA hired after I quit, by the way. So if I hadn't quit TROMA,
dethroned you as the best employee in TROMA history. I quote Lloyd on that one.
I suppose that he did. Certainly he dethroned me in the terms of success by a long shot. But, you know, it was that kind of environment. But at the same token, there are other good lessons about people is that, you know, everyone is expendable. There's a chapter in the book called Everyone is Expendable, especially if you wear a mask, because there was one incident where, you know, one of the actors playing the toxic Avenger kind of lost touch with the fact that he was essentially a guy in a mask, and anyone else could put that mask on and be the guy in the mask. You know, so those kinds of lessons were learned as well.
See, we deal with some people in masks. If you could see the things behind me here on the wall, typically in my normal entertainment circles, horrorcore rap music, we take a lot of inspiration from even, you know, current days of TROMA. It's great when I see on social media Lloyd is hosting a Toxie screening in NYC. You know, this happened a couple weeks ago. Just the fact that they are still active after all this time, certainly if not the longest running, then one of the longest running independent film houses in human history. Where do you think TROMA stands these days with their place in film history, especially given where the market is now, where independent creation is no longer, it's no longer the odd man out these days. Independent creation has become the wave.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think, you know, TROMA, you know, holds a very special place. As you pointed out, Chuck, I think they're in their 44th year, going into 45 years now, which is clearly makes them one of, if not the oldest independent film studio in the world, right? All the others have been gobbled up or disappeared. And TROMA still is out there, as I said before, fiercely independent. And it's a remarkable thing because, you know, Lloyd and Michael created this world or this universe, TROMAville, call it, that they control. And they always had the ability to say F you to Hollywood and F you to anyone and do what they wanted. And however it turned out, they wanted to make these kind of wild and crazy, wacky, off-kilter films, but they could do it because they were beholden to no one but themselves. So really, truly, truly independent. And it was interesting because, number one, that inspired a lot of people in Hollywood. And we used to go, even when I was there, and we would exhibit at the Cannes Film Festival, we'd have, you know, Peter Jackson come by to pay homage to TROMA, you know, back when he was doing his film Bad Taste, you know, long before he became the Peter Jackson we know today. And he was in awe of TROMA, and Quentin Tarantino would come by. And a lot of these young filmmakers who are superstars today found some inspiration, you know, in the independence and in the voice that TROMA was representing to them back then. And so there's a lot of mainstream celebrities who have been in TROMA movies when they were starting out, who have been influenced by TROMA. And then there have been a lot of mainstream movies, especially as the movies have moved more towards, you know, superheroes and comic books revisited, et cetera. You see the influence of TROMA in many films. It started with the original RoboCop. There's a number of scenes in RoboCop that are very TROMA-esque and almost look like they're a deliberate homage to TROMA. And that's carried forward in a lot of the modern day superhero films we're seeing today. So I think their influence is wide. And as you mentioned, you know, we tried to influence the youth by doing a cartoon series, you know.
Oh, I was going to get that here in a second. You say about the influence and the continued influence. The new James Gunn movie, this film Brightburn, the kid's costume's literally a blanket. If there's something that's TROMA inspired, it's just using something from around the house as a costume piece. So, you know, even to this day in his big budget, you know, currency that he's in, he still seems to be, you know, influenced by where he started and the art that was being created. And the stories you tell in the book, I mean, I see it as a true house of creatives trying to make their way while trying to retain ownership. And now, especially with the rise of what I like to call the independents out here, all of us individuals with YouTube channels or Twitch streams, and you've got guys that are pulling larger audiences than network television shows, and they are in full, complete ownership of every minute of their content. And I think all that comes from Troma. And had they ever bent or broke the will to keep ownership and be truly independent, they may not be here today. You know what I'm saying? I think they would have went the way of a New Line or something like that and just been absorbed.
Yeah, and when we did more mainstream things like the Toxic Crusaders, which was the cartoon spinoff, we still did it in a way where, you know, it was Troma doing it. And the Toxic Crusaders, so that was 1990. I think when the cartoon was on.
I remember the slime. I remember the guy with the large nose. How much actual input did you guys have towards the creation of those individual characters? Because
quite a bit.
And you created an entire batch of characters that never saw life on the big screen either. And were these characters that Lloyd had in the tuck? Was there a notebook full of scribbles? Or was this specifically, and what drove it towards the environmental angle? I was trying to explain to my homeboy that this predated Captain Planet to some degree.
Well, it didn't quite predate. Captain Planet was kind of around the same time. Okay. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had been very big and very successful already. Still. And people were worried that they were going to start to wane. Of course, that didn't happen, and they're still around today.
Yeah.
But they were worried, and a lot of people in that industry were looking for the next, you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the Turtles were unique, and it was, you know, from originally a comic book characters, it was a much harder edge than the typical Saturday morning cartoon, and that kind of broke the mold a little bit and opened up the door a crack for people to have this crazy idea that, well, maybe we can take something like the Toxic Avenger and turn that into an edgy but child appropriate cartoon, and that really was the genesis of the Toxic Crusaders. So a lot of those characters, you know, we came up with a lot of them, you know, Major Disaster and Dr. Kill-Em-Off and No Zone. I was involved in that one.
No Zone was the dude. Let me tell you, No Zone was the dude. I specifically have memories of my mother bringing me home a No Zone, and it coming with the little you know, barrel with the slime.
The snot, just little slime snot. Yep.
Memories. Like memories. When I got to
we parted. We were very fortunate because the Turtles had been so hot, and people in that industry perceived the Toxic Crusaders as an opportunity to be the next Turtles. We were able to attract, you know, the best of the best. So we actually worked with the same animation studio, MWS, that had produced the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon, and some of the same creatives involved. So we had their input as well, and it was a close collaboration. But we worked closely. Lloyd and I wrote a few of the episodes of the cartoon series. I wrote an episode called Lawnmower Man, because at the time, my son at the time was little. We used to have a guy come mow our lawn because I was no good at it. And every time he came, my son would go, Lawnmower Man, Lawnmower Man, Lawnmower Man. So, but Mower Man became a character. He became a villain in one of the episodes of the Toxic Crusaders. So that was pretty remarkable. And when we did over 70 deals with toys, Marvel Comics, Worms or Pajamas, books, toys, games, video games from Sega and Nintendo. It was pretty amazing. And again, as our truly independents, you know, we were being approached by all the licensing agents in the industry as the next hot property, and they all wanted to represent the Toxic Crusaders and take a third, you know, as their cut, which was kind of standard in the industry. And we kind of scratched our heads, and I remember, you know, after meeting with some guy, and after we left the office, you know, I looked at Lloyd and Michael and said, you know, this is not rocket science. How hard can it be? Why don't we do it ourselves and not pay a third of the money to someone else? And I raised my hand and said, I'll do it. You know, I didn't know a thing about licensing and merchandising, but like I said, it didn't seem like rocket science. And so that's how Troma Licensing was born. We just said, yeah, let's just do it ourselves. And we just went out there and dove headfirst into that industry and made a lot of great contacts. And, you know, again, the lesson there is, you know, don't be afraid to try something you've never done before. You know, no one's going to love your baby as much as you do. So the fact that us, even though we didn't know that industry, we knew that we could represent the Toxic Crusaders in a way that no one else could, because we knew the history. We understand their birth from the toxic Avenger, et cetera, in a way that just some third-party sales agency would never truly understand and believe in the way we could. So it made a lot of sense for us to just do it ourselves.
And you were able to like protect Toxie as a character. So you could ensure him, because, you know, overall Toxie on top of Lloyd has become the face of Troma over these years, and it's been that way for quite some time. And you talk a lot about branding and consistency in branding. And my people, my viewers, you know, I start my show a certain way, and, you know, the beard speaks now, and it ends with the beard has spoken every episode, you know, consistency. You were able to exhibit that in some creative ways within the films, as a matter of fact, including a reused car crash that I was unfamiliar with. And then when I saw it, I was like, how did I not notice this until now? And it's an amazing story to me, how something that was originally a cost-cutting measure and somewhat of an inside joke became a consistency that the consumer, that the viewer could look forward to.
That's right. And so that particular thing, so again, you know, we were a very low budget studio, and back then there was no CGI. You know, when we did stunts, they were real stunts. Everything was done in the camera. A lot of the special effects, you know, were done, but they were done without computers. So we had one scene where we had a car flip, and we shot it in Hoboken, New Jersey, and it was a pretty elaborate and dangerous stunt where a car had to flip over, you know, and rotate and then land on its tires again. And we had a custom, you know, track and rails built to make it flip the right way. And it was a pretty elaborate, dangerous stunt. And by our standards, it was a very expensive stunt to film. So we had, you know, anytime we were doing a stunt, we assumed it could only be done once. So we would rent extra cameras that day. So we might have 8 or 10 cameras positioned all over the place. So come hell or high water, we were going to get the shot, you know, and get it from multiple angles, because we only got one take. So we did the stunt, and it went really well, and it was a great car flip, you know, but we spent a lot of money on it. So why not keep using it? So that same car flip ended up appearing in many other Troma movies since the original one we shot it for. So at first, you know, for us, it was like a cost savings thing, but eventually it became like an Easter egg where, you know, real Troma fans, when they went to see the next Troma movie, were looking, okay, where are they going to stick the car?
Which angle are we going to get this time? And that's
what is going to happen?
It's just amazing to me, and I enjoy anything it connects the universe. It gives you a connective tissue between these creative pieces. We've been talking a lot about the movies. We've been talking a lot about these lessons that you've learned from the films. But I know now you are in a different world, and you are in a world that any independent creator out there on the internet, taking advantage of their local Google machines and their local Yahoos, should be familiar with. And Absolutely. That is the world of, you know, domain and online marketing. And I know the average guy, I deal with a lot of underground rappers. Why should anybody who has a Facebook, a Twitter, or an Instagram give a fuck about their own domain name? Because it just seems, I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but it seems like a lot of time sometimes.
Well, I'll tell you why, Chuck. It's a great question to answer. First of all, if you're anyone with an online presence and you're relying solely on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or some third-party platform that you don't own and control, you're making a huge mistake. And it goes right back to the Troma story, right? Independence, right? If you exist within Facebook, you are not independent. I don't care how popular you are, how many fans you have, they're not your fans, right? Facebook owns those fans. And I've got nothing against Facebook. Facebook is great. But you need to have your own dedicated presence that you control. Because one day Facebook's going to start charging you stuff that you don't want to pay for, or something else is going to come along. So you need to have that own identity, that own web presence on your own, including you, Chuck. I couldn't find your web page. Your domain name redirects.
I have a domain name that redirects. Now, let me explain to you, I've kind of gotten some problems lately on my own, and I've found that maybe this conversation, just like your book, is entering my life at exactly the correct time, because unfortunately, due to some of my opinions about some underground music and federal government related things that occurred a few years ago, I've been subject to online attack. and as such have been deplatformed from Twitter, from Instagram. I'm routinely deplatformed from Facebook for things that I consider to be fairly innocuous. So I know now, and I'm taking steps to rectify, you can't keep your stuff at somebody else's house.
That's right.
I
but
literally
your instincts.
I put pictures. I didn't realize it. I put pictures in someone else's photo album. And when he stopped liking what I put in his photo album, he threw my photo album out. I'm just coming to grips with that. And if you, especially creators like me, you got to have something else.
That's why you have to have your own destination that you control. But you are doing something right. Your instinct to have your own domain and redirect it is a very good one. So even if you are someone who's living on Facebook and your Facebook page is, in essence, your website, instead of telling people to go to Facebook and search for you, if I go to Facebook and search for Chuck Reeves, I might find 25 different Chuck Reeves. I'm not sure which one is the right one, right? But if I go to your domain and it redirects me to your specific page, then I know I'm getting to the right Chuck. I also am not getting distracted by search results and, oh, there's something else I'd rather look at. So the opportunity today is to find a great custom domain name that's relevant. So my book, right? So my book is called Everything I Know About Business and Marketing I Learned from the Toxic Avenger. I want you to go to Amazon and buy the book. But if you go to Amazon and search for the book's title or search for my name, you're going to see other results. You're going to see other things about the Toxic Avenger. You're going to see other books you didn't know existed. Maybe you're going to get distracted and buy one of those. So instead, I registered the domain name toxicavenger.marketing, because there's a .marketing extension now, just like there's a .club extension. So I registered toxicavenger.marketing, and I have that redirect right to my book's page on Amazon. So when I market the book, when I appear on your podcast, when I do things on Facebook or whatever promoting the book, I always say go to toxicavenger.marketing, and that takes them right, literally one click away from buying the book on Amazon. Not going to get distracted by, oh, should I get the Toxic Avenger movie instead? Or should I see this other thing? Or maybe that's not the right Jeff Sass, blah, blah, blah. So you have an opportunity now with all these new extensions to find a domain name that really is relevant, right? Marketing's in my title of the book. It's a marketing book, so .marketing made sense. If you've got a membership or subscription business, .club makes sense as a domain name. There's .guru, there's .ninja, there's .agency, there's .lawyer, there's .design. So whatever you do, especially for freelancers, whatever your industry or your angle is, you can find a domain name that makes sense for you and use it to redirect it to your presence on another platform until you have your own place. Because then you can change it, right? Let's say Amazon goes away, not likely, but let's say Amazon went away and now my book was for sale somewhere else and I didn't want to send you to Amazon. I don't have to change anything. I just have to change where that domain name redirects. But all my marketing material that says go to toxicavenger.marketing is still good. It's just going to take you somewhere else then in the future, right? So you're in control when you have that domain name.
See, that's exactly what I'm learning now. I mean, I've gone through various stages. Like I said, I was an underground performer in terms of rap music, and I found the easier it was to consolidate everything into either one name or one series of words. With these, specific high-level, top-level domain names, it gives you a flexibility in being a little creative with your website, which back in the day could have been achieved by, being creative with your phone number. Is there anything you can give them as far as advice? I hear guys, it's his full name, but his full name is 7 words, and that's his stage name and his band. Is brevity good to go most of the time on these domain names?
So I think it's a good question, Chuck. I think for the most part, brevity is good, but it's not always best. And better than brevity is being accurate, spelling things correctly. Like I think the biggest mistake people make, especially a lot of startups now, is they spell something wrong intentionally because they couldn't get the other word in the domain extension they wanted, or they misspell something, or they make up words that don't exist. And it's just so much harder for someone to find you when it's not spelt correctly. Like if you spelled beard, B-E-E-R-D, no one would ever find you, right? Because that's not how beard is spelled. But it sounds the same, so it doesn't pass the radio test. So whether it's long or short, you want to make sure that your domain name passes the radio test, which means if you and I are saying it on this podcast and someone hears it, are they going to know where to go just by hearing it? I was at a trade show once, in San Francisco. It might have been TechCrunch Disrupt. I can't remember. And there were two different companies exhibiting with the same name, right? They were both called Safe, and they both had the web address safe.com. But one was spelled SAIFE, and one was spelled SAYFE. And guess what? Anyone who was talking about safe.com, you know where people were going? To whoever owned SAFE.com, right? Because it's spelled correctly. So it's not a good idea. You know, it used to be popular. Flickr did it. When they dropped the E, it was Flickr without the E. But that was 2004. And the world's changed. It was a thing for a while. It's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, Google was a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
We're just going to randomly come up with a word because Bing didn't catch on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people have tried it other than that. The thing you could build a brand with a made-up word, but it's going to cost you a lot more. It's going to be much harder. You're starting off with one hand tied behind your back. And you better do something that you can't get specific about. Because it just seems like
that's where the new extensions are interesting, because it used to be the extension was somewhat generic. .com is great. It's the established leader, but it's generic. It doesn't add meaning. So, something.com could be anything. But when the extension has meaning, as soon as you say something.club, you have a sense that there's a community around it. There's membership. If you say something.design, sunflower.design is going to be different than sunflower.com, right? Or sunflower.agency. All of a sudden, it's the same keyword, but now you know something more about them. Oh, they're the agency. Oh, that's the designer. Sunflower.law. Oh, they're the lawyers. So the extension can help define the keyword on the other side, and that gives you the flexibility to actually use a keyword and give it some meaning.
Now, how do you come to own one of these top-level domains, one of these .club? Is there a .beard?
There is. That's a good question. I don't know if there's a .beard. I don't know. I could look it up and find out for you.
That'd be kind of fun. That'd be kind of amusing.
You could apply for it in the next round. So what happened was ICANN, which is the nonprofit organization that operates the internet namespace. Back in 2011, they opened up the opportunity for anyone to apply for anything as a top-level domain. So you could have applied for .beard, you could have applied for .chuck, you could have applied for anything you wanted. The application fee was $185,000, so it was a little bit pricey.
Wow.
And if you were the only one who applied, so if you applied for .beard, Chuck, and you were the only one, then you would become the registry operator for .beard for just that $185,000. But if other people also applied for .beard, then you would have to compete with them. So when we applied for .club, two other companies also applied for .club. And it took us over a year of negotiating and eventually going to an auction where we ended up getting the name, but at that point for an investment of millions of dollars to get the rights to the name after almost 2 years. So it was a very long and expensive process, but we became the registry operator for .club, and we launched .club about 5 years ago, and it's been doing very well. We have over 1.5 million registrations worldwide. All different use cases, everything from existing clubs and organizations to, bloggers who are passionate about a certain topic to e-commerce sites with membership and subscription models and on and on and on. So Club's done very well. But it was a long and expensive process. So our company is a startup. We raised money just to apply for and then operate .club. And tying in, sorry to...
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Nope.
Tying in the earlier question about how do you bring the whole TROMA stuff and the entertainment stuff into this world. So when we were launching .club 5 years ago, I wanted to do something that would get a lot of attention that had never been done in the domain industry before. So thinking back to my entertainment roots, I thought it'd be cool to do like a Hollywood-style premiere and a launch party with a celebrity. But when you're doing influencer marketing, you want to make sure there's a connection. You don't want it to look like you just paid someone some money to promote your product. So I went after 50 Cent because when you think of 50, you think of the song In the Club, right? So there was a really cool connection there. So I was able to get to Fiddy's people, and my people talked to his people, and we were able to put together a deal. And when we launched .club, 50 Cent, Curtis, he built a website, 50in.club, which is a fan site, which is still live today. And we did a big Hollywood-style premiere party when we launched .club in New York, where we invited all the people from GoDaddy and all the industry players in, and 50 Cent was there. And it was a lot of fun. It was something that had never been done before, in the domain industry. And more importantly, too, combining business and entertainment, I made sure that we got the rights from 50 and his people, that all of the registrars who were offering .club at the launch could use his image in a little promotional campaign. 50 is in the club, you could be in the club too. And we provided, banners and digital banners and ads and things that all of our registrar partners could use. And it was a win-win, because all of a sudden 50 Cent was getting exposed, all over the world, by these registrars, and having his picture on GoDaddy and other places. So it was a win-win situation. So that was really cool. And that was something that I don't think, if I hadn't had my trauma and entertainment background, I don't think I ever would have done anything like that in the domain industry.
See, I love it nowadays, because you have things like that occur. And I know there would have been some point in rap where 50 would have been looked down upon for pairing himself with any kind of, corporate entity. But with the way the world has really shifted to the cyberspace, especially for the creatives, for the, the content creators and stuff, it's just made sense that we just partner with these business entities ourselves and maintain ownership. And you guys and the .club domains, I'm sure, are a big part in helping people maintain their own platforms free of fear of deplatform. They can sell their own ad spaces. They don't have to worry about making fractions of a cent for their, for their advertising, as many of us do. And as the industry changes, I'm thinking that this is going to become more and more important. Is there anything you've seen in your, journey from Troma to now that you think was the huge catalyst to the way things are now? Do you think it was like the ease of, because you talk about the flatbed editing.
Yeah, so I think
I have no idea. I have no idea what flatbed editing is, because I have a laptop and my laptop has Final Cut on it. And
that's the thing. And you hit the nail on the head, Chuck. That's what's changed. I mean, technology, and I've always been kind of a geek, which is why this is fun. But technology has really changed everything. Technology has disintermediated the content business. So the powers of creation, the tools to create, everyone has access to them now, right? You don't have to. You just have to have a smartphone.
You talked about the 3 things you needed to make a movie. I don't even want to give any more of the book away, because I want the heads to hop on toxicavenger.marketing and get your book. And that's the thing. I didn't even have that written down, but you said it twice, and that was enough to make it stick in my brain. But I want the heads to go out there. But you talk about the 3 basic this is what we need to make a movie. Now that list for any number of things, especially podcasting, has gone down to 1 item or less in most cases. So we take advantage of this technology anyway. So I implore my people coming up out, underground entrepreneurs, independent business owners, take advantage of all the technology. Don't just take advantage of the stuff that makes your life easier on the technical side. Take advantage of this technology that's going to make it easier on the marketing side.
Right. But at the end of the day, the technology is not going to create the story for you. No. So you still have to, the technology to produce stuff is easier and more accessible today, but you still have to think about the value of the content. Or what are you doing? Are you providing something that's helpful? Is it entertaining? Is it informative? All those things still have to be there, regardless of what tools you use to create it, right? You can have, and that goes back to the 3 things you mentioned. When I talked about what you needed to make a movie, it was really a lesson on focusing on what's really important for your business, right? And whether you're a sole proprietor or running a big company, it's easy to be busy, but are you going to be busy on the things that really matter? And what I learned when we were making these crazy movies is that there were only 3 things that really mattered. Everything else didn't matter, right? And that was, we had to have a camera. Can't make a film without a camera. You have to have film in the camera. Today, you'd have to have digital storage space, batteries, et cetera, but the camera has to have a mechanism for recording. And you have to have actors and actresses to get in front of that camera and tell your story. And if I didn't have those 3 things, nothing else mattered. It didn't matter if I had the best director in the world. It didn't matter if I had Steven Spielberg as the director. He can't make a movie without those 3 things, right? Didn't matter if we had great locations. Didn't matter if we had a prize-winning screenplay written by the greatest author in the world. you had to have those three things or nothing else mattered. So the lesson from that is, what in your business is the same three things? What are the things that actually matter every single day? And are you paying enough attention to them? We're busy all the time. I'm guilty of it myself. I'll go to work. I'll have I'm so busy today. But was I really busy on anything that mattered? Unfortunately, a lot of days, the answer to that is no, if I'm honest, right? So that was a really good lesson. And with that in mind, we always had to prepare those three things. I had to make sure, as a production manager, that the camera truck was there every morning on set, first thing there and the last thing to go. I had to make sure it was safe at night.
Yep, you had to protect it. Yep.
I had to protect it so the Teamsters didn't come and poke holes in the tires of the camera truck or steal our film or whatever. I had to make sure that the actresses and actors were on set on time. So I had to have a PA go in their own private vehicle and pick them up every morning and make sure that they showed up on time and wake them up an hour in advance and everything else. Because if they didn't show up, we're screwed. So what are those things in your business that really do matter, that you really should be paying attention to on a daily basis? So that was a good lesson from that.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like everything you learn from Troma, everything you've been able to take with you has led to, all the success you have today. But like I said, this domain thing's got me on my job trying to figure out. I have a web designer and all that, and with the product being video with audio components, and I just need the one place because I'm not going to fight with Instagram. I'm not going to fight with Twitter. If they do decide to declare those public utilities, which it looks like it may happen, that'll change everything, because then they can't deplatform anyone because they can't. So yeah, but I think definitely, at least for a backup, because if YouTube decided just to hit the delete button, I don't know what I would do. Like that to me is a nightmare scenario. I have a hard drive full of stuff, but I know it's not all of it. And it really, after thinking about it and after this deplatforming BS I've gone through, besides the the domains, you ever heard of QRC codes? Of course. How do you feel about those? Because I always get into what's the word I'm looking for? Not arguments, but discussions. With marketers about the use of these, because it at some point it didn't require you to download something to your phone, and I think that you adding that extra step, it gets in the way of what you're trying to achieve with a QRC code.
Totally agree. So I think there's several things. So it's interesting. I once was co-founder of a company called barpoint.com. So we were an early player in mobile commerce based on barcodes. So so I was in that industry for a while. So the challenge, you hit the nail on the head, Chuck. The challenge initially with QR codes is, in many circumstances, it's too much work because you have to download the app, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's changing because some of the newer smartphones, they have the QR code readers built into the native camera software. So you can just point your native camera at it, and that makes it significantly easier. But there are still other challenges. You have to create a situation where it's okay to take the phone out and do it. People have put QR codes in there's lots of cases of botched marketing campaigns where they'll put a QR code. Before there was internet on airplanes, they were putting QR codes on the back of airplane seats and ads. Well, you had no connection. There was no way to scan it.
That doesn't
when you're
really
30,000 feet in the air, or people put QR codes on things that are moving too fast for anyone to ever get a chance to actually scan the code. So there were problems with that. The other potential problem with the QR codes is it doesn't give you any heads up as to what to expect at the other end. So there's no uniform experience. So you might scan this code and it takes you to a video. You might scan that code and it takes you to a web page. You might scan this code and it goes nowhere. So there's no necessary uniform experience. Now, that's getting better with some of the more creative codes where you can actually embed art and other things into the code. But unlike a domain name where it actually gives you an indication of where you're going and what to expect, sometimes just the raw QR code with no other information is too little, and then it's not attractive to people. So
that's a tough one. We used to incorporate it as part of either other promotion or as part of like guerrilla marketing.
Yeah, so it was clear. It was giving an indication of what to expect.
Well, it was either clear what to expect or clear you didn't know what to expect, because there were several times where we would literally just put the QRC code full size on an 8x11 and just put some random phrase at the top that made no sense. And It was just guerrilla marketing 101. I'm from Boston, where we shut an entire city down with our guerrilla marketing by mistake. We put up like light bright boards for an Adult Swim show.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
one of the companies here was contracted by, the Warner company or the Turner company to do that. And a city worker saw one and they thought it was a device of some kind. And then they find them all over the city. And it literally shut Boston down. And it's like, well, somebody's getting a fine. Somebody's probably going to get a fine for that marketing. But that's really the world I come from. And we've been able to piggyback a little bit on technology as it's come along.
Yeah. But there are a lot of use cases for QR codes that are emerging even today. New use cases that are really good. Like, for example, I don't know if you have them in Boston yet, but I'm in Fort Lauderdale and we've got the scooters everywhere. The scooter rentals from Bird and Lime, and you use a QR code to unlock the scooter, and it's a really nice, easy, seamless system. You open up your phone, the app, you point it at the barcode in that scooter, and the scooter comes to life. So that's kind of cool. So you're using it as a lock. So there are lots of applications and new applications coming out.
I see it every time I fly. QRC code on my phone. That's what your boarding pass is, essentially, is one of these codes.
Yeah.
I know some people were scared of them. We did use them. One of the problems I found now, too, is if you don't keep that, the ownership of that will change.
Yeah.
But
the difference, too, is with the QR code, you have to physically be with the code and scan it. With a domain name, with a memorable domain name, like you remembered Toxie.marketing, you remembered ToxicAvenger.marketing, it transcends all medium, right? People know what to do with the domain name. You can hear it, and people still know what to do with it. You can see it on a sign, on the side of a bus, on a billboard, and people know what to do. If it's digital, you can click on it. So it's one of these calls to action that literally goes across all medium. Works on radio, works on TV, works digital.
It's the sing-along phone number of the 21st century. And, we all grew up with the singing phone numbers to the different businesses. Now it's these domain names, and it's super important. It's super important that people look at all their, internet presence and make sure it's all consolidative, make sure it's all essentially the same. I argue with rappers all the time. Your Twitter handle, Instagram handle, Facebook, and your domain name should all be potentially the same thing, or as close as you can get it. I mean, that's how I ended up with Beast Host Beard. But like you said, I've got nothing misspelled intentionally. There's a lot of that in the rap world that I see problems with. I get that's your name and you have it spelt wrong, but maybe you need to look at your domain name.
Absolutely. And no more Lil rappers. We got too many Lils, too many Lils. No,
Lils. What I'm dealing with now is like killers. Everybody's a killer. It's like, nah, not everybody's a killer, my dog. Not everybody's a killer. One of the best right now are these guys, Al Azul. I'm sure they would be one of the first to admit they were obviously, to some degree, influenced by all horror movies, but definitely some trauma films. But they straddle a line that's very easily bad, but is self-aware enough to maintain the correct balance. I'll say that. Because there is a lot of garbage in my world and a lot of over-the-top, I'm going to stab you, and I'm going to stab you again, and I'm going to stab you. But, guys like that, some of the other guys we work with, they straddle this nice line where it's self-awareness that helps. I think we got a good one here. I appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything you wanted to add before I let you go?
I just really appreciate it. It's great to talk to you. I listened to a few of the shows beforehand, and this has been a lot of fun. And I just hope it's of value to your listeners and viewers, and they get something out of it. And if they do, support me by going out and picking up a copy of the book at ToxicAvenger.marketing.
I really hope people do. I really hope people do. If you are an independent business person of any type, whether you're an entertainer, which is the majority of what I deal with, obviously, but if you sell fucking beard oil, whatever it is, this book, you're going to learn something. And it's going to,
and it's easy to read. Short chapters. For those of you who grew up in a Twitter 140 character world, most of the chapters are 1 or 2 pages. Short, fun, easy to read. It's not your typical business or marketing book by a long shot.
And I'll tell you what, getting this book in the mail showed me exactly how much the publishing business has changed. But I think I wanted to ask you about that once we went offline. Once again, thank you so much. And all the success in the world.
Thanks, Chuck.
I want to thank Jeffrey for coming by The Beard Speaks today and sharing his wealth of knowledge in both filmmaking and business with the heads here at large and myself. I implore you, I enjoyed the shit out of it. Like he said, it's a short read. It's an easy read. Head on over to toxicavenger.marketing and grab yourself a copy of everything I know about business and marketing I learned from the Toxic Avenger, One Man's Journey to Hell's Kitchen and Back. It's available now. Yeah, it's a dope book. Seriously, anybody out there who reads, has a business, wants to succeed on the internet or in any type of business, make sure you're going out and copping this wonderful, wonderful tome. Later this week, I think we got a live show, Thursday or Friday night. If you haven't noticed, I'm tinkering with the release dates a little bit. All right, with this whole IG lockout, Twitter lockout bullshit, I'm tinkering with these time frames so I can try to get something up on all my networks every day of the week. I'm toying around with the idea of adding another strictly audio podcast to the catalog here. So be on the fucking lookout. Thanks again to Jeffrey Sass for joining me via the Skype machine. And heads, until next time, the beard has spoken. The Beard Speaks would like to thank our sponsors, Beard Love. Visit mybeardlove.com/beasthost and get 10% off on all the wonderful oils, washes, and balms available in a multitude of fragrances from Beard Love. Did you ever wish you could have a beard just like Chuck Reeves, the Beast Host? Well, you can. You just need time, you need laziness, a desire never to shave, and then, of course, you need some beard love. mybeardlove.com.